Hello my gorgeous makeup loving friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hi, my name is Teresa. We knew this was happening. We knew we were getting a Carnival 5 from Stacey Marie, but it's in my gross little paws now. It's called the Interstellar and it has essentially a space theme, as you can see with these three kind of columns here, kind of very grey toned, etc. So this is obviously the 5th iteration from the fabulously talented Stacey Marie. So I had to get my paws on it because I just love Stacey Marie. This is the eye look that I came up with. So if you want to see an overall tutorial, some swatches and a review of do I think this is worth it, then this is the video for you. Do please keep on watching. That's right, the hair is pinned back so that I can hide the greasiness, but more importantly, do some face swatches. Let's get into this because this is a massive palette, and although I have a fat face, there's only so much that this can accommodate. Let's give it a go. There we go, my friends. Honestly, I might be more surprised than you are that I managed to fit a 45 pan palette onto my face. You can see she sectioned it off really well. You have your blues and your greens. Gotta say that shade Interstellar. Sweet merciful Jesus. You have your pinks, your purples, and then you have your greys. Now, there isn't a lot of like oranges or yellows in there. They tend to kind of get subsumed into more of the pinkies or the bluey greeny category. All in all, quite an interesting colour story. Particularly love this grayscale one. But obviously I have improved upon the previous look. But you too can recreate at least this bit. But the tutorial is the next bit, so do please keep on watching. I mean, as you can see, it's super simple. It's just a cut crease, but I wanted to really try the grey toned part of the palette because for me, that's the most interesting bit. So I used this sort of like a Morphe kind of brow brush, and I figured, fuck it, let's go straight into the black here. It's called Dark Side. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't look super black in the palette, but once it goes onto the eyelid, slightly different story. So for the moment, all I'm really doing here is just sketching out the general line of where I want this to go. And attempting to also try and make these eyes look somewhat similar. Like I said, once you actually have it on the eyelid, like it does look quite black. So, you know, appearances can be deceiving. I think particularly when the background of the palette is black itself, it does kind of make you go, oh, is this as black as I need it to be? And it is, my friends. It truly, truly is. So for the moment, just kind of bringing it down here and working it, kind of attempting to give a little bit of a definition there. Super simple. And now I'm using another kind of brow brush. This time it is a Jessup one, and I'm going into First Man. And I love that she's laid this out as essentially a gradient because it just makes it so much easier for me then to figure out what to do with it. I don't love a jumbled palette because my brain can't 100% process what to do with it. As you can see, this is still somewhat similar to the black, but there is obviously a little bit of a shade down. So that does mean that when you get to actually attempting to blend them, they're very, very easy to blend, which is nice. And yet another Jessup brow brush. This time I'm going into the shade Odyssey. And again, just trying to layer that on top. So you can see this is where we really start to see the gradient kind of forming. Super, super pigmented. Like, she's never done any of these grey tones before. And I think this is really smart because like there's so few kind of options for that on the market at the moment. I know like Colourpop have their smoky one, but like, is it going to be the best of like quality? Hard to tell. And another Jessup brush. Can you tell I really enjoy Jessup? I'm going into Misty Moon now. And this is probably one of the lightest shades when it comes to like the grey toned part of the palette. And I really wanted to see how they would all blend together. Spoiler alert, pretty darn nicely. So just bringing that down there again. So it all looks a bit manic at the moment, but don't worry. That's for future Teresa to sort out. And that's right, guys. The time has come for future Teresa, aka present Teresa, to sort this shit out. I'm taking a blank canvas E10 and I'm not taking any product on it. And we can see here already how easily these blend together. Like, they do just work really nicely together. I don't have to work very, very hard in an attempt to get them to blend because she's gone with that gradient. So it just makes it a lot easier to kind of work through. I still maintain that if she had just come out with the grey toned part of the palette and just done that as like its own separate thing, I think that would have done really, really well. I was kind of surprised. I thought she was going to maybe come out with some pastels because we haven't seen any pastels from her before. Maybe that'll be Carnival 6, but I thought, oh, that could be quite interesting. That being said, the theme of the palette is Interstellar, so like, of course it's going to be like some really kind of jewel toned sort of colours. So like, when you think of the theme, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But you can see there, it's all blending super, super well. Are you that surprised? BPerfect in general have like a very blendable formula, but I always feel like the game has stepped up as soon as Stacey Marie enters the building. She's just like, I don't know if it's just that she kind of, I don't know, works on this more or has a bit more kind of control over things. But I always trust a Stacey Marie BPerfect collab to be like of even better quality than what I would generally get from that brand. And I'm really seeing that here with this palette again. So I've obviously lost a little bit of the depth in terms of blending out. So I'm just taking this brush again and I'm going into Dark Side, which was the first shade that I went in with, and just kind of bringing that out and getting a little bit more in depth. Now, less is more, if I'm 100% honest, because this is very, very pigmented. So, you know, just chill out. I know you're going to want to smack it onto your face to be your own raccoon loving self, but try to not, you know, just exercise a little bit of restraint if you can at all. And then I'm just taking First Man again, so that was the second shade that I went into. And again, you can see how nicely these do actually blend in with each other. Again, don't go in with a massive amount of pigment. You just don't need it, you know? And then a little bit of Odyssey again, and just kind of adding into that blend a little bit further just to get more of the depth and darkness here. And finally into Misty Moon, which for a light shade, look at how like pigmented that is. Like that almost like covers up the rest, which is slightly what I wanted it to do because I went a little bit bananas in my blending and was like, oh, let's bring you all the way up to the brow. No, Teresa, this didn't have to go all the way up to the brow. You're far too enthusiastic and it is late at night and I'm a little bit tired. So yeah, just don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. But you can see that does blend really, really easily. And I think it's really important that you guys don't judge me for this next bit. Like this shade Velocity was just staring at me. It was eyeballing me. It was making me feel things, which for a person who's dead inside, that's quite unusual. So I'm just taking this blank canvas E10 and I'm going into that shade Velocity. And I had it in my head that I was going to do like a brow bone highlighter. Now, you're going to see when I put this on, it's actually disgustingly pigmented. So sorry, lads, it ain't going to be used as a highlighter. What I actually had to do then was just really, really try to blend that out and then pop a few more of the previous kind of pigments on top just to make it a little bit more chilled out, because it was very like wabam when I initially put it on the other eye. I think because I was just like smashing my bloody brush into it and I was like, oh god, Teresa, you make terrible life decisions, but you know, whatever. So again, that does mean that I'm going in with kind of those first couple of shades and just attempting to blend them out again. Don't worry, we won't go through this process together, but I just wanted to be really transparent with you as to what it was that I was doing. And you know how I said that the shade Velocity was staring at me? Well, the shade New Moon, Sweet Merciful Jesus, this one here, not only did it stare at me, but it stared into the depths of my soul, and I think it took it, quite frankly, because did it make sense for me to put it with this look? only you can really tell, but I was like, no, this has to get onto my face, onto my eyeball in any way possible. So obviously going in with another blank canvas E10, and don't take too much on because this one, Shea Pigmented, look at that, look at it, look at it, ruining your lives in the best way possible. This is so beautiful. Should I put a bit more on over here? Yeah. As you can see, very precise in my makeup over here. I don't know what I'm doing, but you can see this is just super, super pigmented. So love it. I'm gonna kind of deepen it out a little bit more with the other shades, and I'm gonna cut this out and we'll come back and do the rest. Okay, the crease has been cut and I'm using this Zoeva 238 and I'm going into the shade Roswell. And this is again where I'm kind of like, I wish there was a little bit more of a pastel theme here, because we haven't really gotten that from BPerfect so far, or from Stacey Marie. I think that could have been really interesting to juxtapose against this, but that's just me being really weird and pedantic. But we're getting really nice pigment from this. I swear, like, is it like Stacey Marie has in her contract that there has to be like a purple in absolutely everything? Like, I'm not against it, but like they are in like every single palette. But I think this is quite pretty. Like, it's looking quite nice. I can see how this is very spacey, you know? Another Zoeva 238 again, and this time I'm going into the shade Atom. So again, I'm kind of doing that gradient thing. She's laid it out in such a way that it is really easy to achieve that. So I'm just laying that on here, and as you can see, it's just a couple of shades darker than the shade Roswell. So it is really handy if you are a little bit unsure of blending, or you're a bit like unconfident in these. So I think she's laid it out in such a way that if this colour story does intrigue you, but you're a bit nervous of kind of trying to put all of these colours together, she has done it in such a way that it's not quite foolproof, but it is a little bit more manageable than it might be laid out in other palettes by other brands. So I think she's done really well on that. And I will also say purples are like so bloody difficult to get right because they can be a little bit patchy, and so far this is looking pretty decent. There is like little bits where it is kind of clinging, but that might be just like my skin. But in general, like once you blend it out, it goes pretty darn well. And then another Zoeva 238, and this time I'm going into the shade Spacewalk, which reminds me ever so slightly of, I think is it Blackberry from the Tahiti 3, so that's like the Carnival 3. I don't think it's a dead-on dupe, but it's definitely something that could be used in tandem with kind of Blackberry, because I think they are similar enough that you could probably use this to maybe blend out Blackberry. It's not as deep and dark as Blackberry, so I think that's important to consider. So again, just kind of popping that out here. Decent amount of pigment with this. I will say this one probably wasn't as pigmented as I would have liked, but again, that's just me being really pernickety, you know, and just bringing it out here. And now I'm just taking a Morphe M562 with no product on it, and I just want to kind of blend from the lightest out towards the deepest shade of this purple, just in an attempt to give it more even coverage, because again, there is parts where it's kind of more pigmented than others, and that could be down to my application, because like I'm obviously not a pro like Stacey Marie, who is disgustingly talented and by all accounts a very nice human. But yeah, I don't have her talent, but it is still working out pretty darn well for a layperson like myself. So hopefully you can see there that the pigment is actually pretty good. You can get that gradient really nicely and really easily, so I was quite happy with that. I'm going back in with a Morphe kind of liner, brow liner brush, and I'm going back in to Dark Side, which is the black from the palette, and literally just kind of bringing that up to here and down here, so I can kind of achieve a little bit more of a smoky outy look. Yes, I know, such precision in terms of the terms being used. Don't worry, Stacey Marie, you can learn so much from me, JK, obviously. But you can see, like, this can be used really easily as a liner. Like, the pigment on that is damn good, right? Like, that is that is something to be discussed. I'm again taking that Morphe M562 and just kind of sweeping it along here just to merge with the black a little bit further. Now there is more that I do with this later, but for now this is just what we're seeing, and you can see it doesn't blend really nicely, although I generally find that if you put a black and a purple together, they do have a tendency to blend nicely together, so I'm happy with that. And this is again where the child in me just couldn't resist the shinies. I took this NYX brush, it's like a silicone thing, and there's the shade Orbit, which is like this gorgeous glittery thing, and then there's the shade Milky Way, and I was like, how could I possibly choose between them? I couldn't. It was a Sophie's choice, but less sad. So I was like, right, I kind of decided I'd do half the brush in the blue and then half the brush in the pink, and just kind of be like, you may go wherever you wish on the eyeball. So all I'm doing is obviously just popping it right here. I mean, look at that. It just goes on, wha-bam, with reckless abandon. That's right, that's how I do things. And to be fully honest with you, I just then take my finger, I know I'm so disgusting, I do ask for permission first, and just recklessly just smash it all over the place. So you can see the pink and the blue just work so well together to just give it a little bit of something else. And I'm just going back in with that Morphe M562 just in an attempt to diffuse this a little bit further, so it's not as like, oh my god, there's a shit ton of glitter on her eyes. What is wrong with her? I mean, so many things. Let's not open that particular Pandora's box. But then the next thing I kind of did was I took this Zoeva brush. It is the 225. I love it for blending out black. And I took a little bit of dark side, so the black, and the deepest purple, Spacewalk, forgot it, and just smoke that out there and just go backwards and forwards. So this is really great for like deepening things out a little bit further. And just bringing it down ever so slightly down to the lash line. But I'm going to take a bit of Spacewalk again, and I won't be focusing so much on the black from here. I'm just trying to kind of more purple it out a little bit. So I'm going to take some of Atom as well, which was the second kind of purple that I looked at, and just blending that there. And then I'm taking this Melt Mesh brush, and I am just going to take this without anything on it and just blend, because for whatever reason I always find that this solves all of my problems. And I'm going to link it in then with the kind of grey toned then towards the side, so that they're kind of meshing in there. And I'm going to take a little bit of Atom and Roswell as well and just smoosh them there and just work that there. So I just quickly tidied up the eye, and all I'm doing now is the under eye. I'm just taking this Zoeva 238 and I'm going into the shade Lunar. Now I was quite excited when I saw the shade because it reminded me a little bit of that luminous yellow which was in the BH Cosmetics Trendy in Tokyo, but I will say this isn't fantastic in terms of pigment. It does have a tendency to just dissipate a little bit. I tried this with several brushes. The 238 was the one that could kind of get it down the most, but it still is quite patchy on me. So I was a little bit like, oh, that's a pity, because you can see even over here, I just couldn't get it to be the intensity that I needed it to be. So that was like really quite frustrating for me, but I know that's all very first world problems. But I'm going to take this Inglot brush, it's the 208, and I'm going to go into that same shade again and just show you again what it's like here. So it does have a tendency to dissipate, and I did wipe this off with my colour switch, and I'm going into the shade Woke now, and I'm just kind of popping that kind of where the other one finished and just bringing that along. I love this brush for under eyes. Same brush again, and because I'm an idiot, I had to use the shade Celestial. It's a green. It's almost like it's a law for me that I have to figure out how to put a green into a look somewhere. So I just popped that there, and that's quite nice and pigmented, so I was quite happy with that. And then finally going into the shade Dark Side, which was our black, and just bringing that down there. All in all, I think it works pretty well. I'm just using this Sigma E36 just to kind of blend it along here as well, just to get a little bit more of a transition. But other than that, my friends, that is it. I'm obviously putting a liner on. It's the Sheen Cosmetics, S-H-E-E-N, and it's the shade Mellow, in case you're wondering. And yeah, that's essentially it. And then we'll come back and I'll tell you what it is that I think of this palette overall. I'm back and my hair is disgusting and greasy. I wanted to let you know, actually, in the interim while I was gone, I actually used 2 shades as blush. Are we that surprised? I have a tendency to do that. I used the shade Classified, which is this kind of pale peach, and I used From Mars as well. And it came off really, really nicely. I will say super pigmented, so go on it really gently, but I thought it gave a really nice overall look. But that being said, let's have a little look at the eye look overall. So this is what it looks like all put together. Very purple toned. You can see the grey there a little bit better. I'll take my fringe out of the way. And I think you do see something a little bit more interesting when you do it in that way. I couldn't resist putting on some gems that had essentially planets on it. I'm doing it for Stacey Marie, but I thought this all came together really, really nicely. Everything blended. There were points where it was a bit patchy, but it did work itself out, so I'm not going to get annoyed over that. But let's get on to the overall review and what I thought of this palette. Look, it's a Stacey Marie palette, so you know it's going to be good quality. There were 1 or 2 shades that I thought was like, particularly the shade Lunar. It just didn't pack the punch that I really, really wanted it to. That being said, I think there's a lot of very special shades in here. I do think, and this is me being whatever, I don't think she needed this because she has these sort of shades already throughout Carnivals 1, 2 and 3. Not so much in 4 because 4 was very, very different. But I think she could have kind of gone without this and just done this kind of grey tone thing. And I think a lot of people would have responded quite a bit to that because like I said, we've kind of got these before. That being said, these glittery formulas, really, really nice. I gotta say, I enjoy it. All in all, do I think you need it? You probably don't if you're like me and you have a million like eyeshadow palettes. But if you like the colour story and generally like Stacey Marie, etc., you know what? You're gonna enjoy this. You are. Like, that's end of. So for me, I think this is a solid 8.5 out of 10. I'm pretty happy with this. And the big question is, if I didn't get this, would I regret not having it? Yes. And if anything happened to this, would I ever want to repurchase it? Yeah, I think particularly, like I said, for the grey toned bits, I don't really have anything like that in my collection. So for me, I think that's the standout bit. But let me know what you guys thought. Did you get the Carnival 5 and what did you think of it? Because as always, I'm super, super nosy. But my friends, that's it. That's the end of this video. Do please like, comment and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell and do please share. Because sharing is caring, except of course for STDs, in which case, you know, you just gotta wrap it up. Don't be gross. But I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.